We are back with you live once again on another Johnny Torch live broadcast. Live broadcast number 189 and Torch News Roundup number 166. Order 66. Yeah, we're going to talk Star Wars yet again. I really wasn't even planning on checking out that Duel of the Fates script. But what can I say? You know, it's Star Wars. Everybody loves Star Wars. I had to find out about it. I just took a really cursory read of it, so we're going to be reading it together for the first time. I'm going to read one of the, you know, Cliff Notes versions on one of these websites that I've checked out. We're going to talk about that at the end of the show. We got a lot more goodies to talk about here. And welcome in on the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on Johnny Torch's live broadcast. Seated high atop the metropolis below, and we've got some snow in the air. I just took my usual Saturday constitutional, and by the time I was on my way back home, the snow was starting to fill the air. Feeling very, you know, Christmassy here in mid-January. Martin Luther King Jr. Day coming up. This is the holiday weekend as well of that, so I hope you all observe and enjoy your holiday. We got a lot to talk about here. First off, let's get straight to it. Because I always forget by the end of the show, so let me admonish you now to make sure you share with all your friends, because everybody loves sharing. Everybody loves sharing friends, don't they? Everybody loves a friend that'll share. Let me put it that way. Be sure to like the video or dislike it if you want. I don't care, because supposedly it has the same bearings on the algorithm. It just shows one way or another that you're engaged. So, hey, you want to leave me a dislike, feel free. And be sure you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed, we're up to 116 subscribers. See, getting to 100 is the tricky thing. If you're out there trying to grow your YouTube channel, get to 100. Once you get to 100, you'll find it's a little bit easier getting the subs. Not a lot easier, but we got to 100 subs, I think, was it like October of last year? And here we are. We're at 116. Got a new sub this past week. I'm not sure. If you have subbed, let me know in the comments below, and we'll welcome you, and we'll also sub to your channel and give you a little promotion if possible, if you have a channel. Love to find out, because my notifications barely work. I find out one out of every, I don't know, 5 or 6 subs I get, I'll find out in my notifications. So if that's important to you, that you get some subs in return, be sure to let me know by leaving a comment below. I have the chat room open. We are going to entertain any and all manner of questions if you are thus inclined. And if you're not watching this live, be sure you leave a comment in the comments below, and you will get your comment addressed in next week's live broadcast. We had the recorded show that we did on Wednesday, the Crisis on Infinite Earths review. I was very pleased with it. If you haven't watched that yet, that's become a pretty popular video as well, even though I barely look at analytics anymore, to be totally honest with you. I'll see the views. I don't know. The views could be someone watching it for 10 seconds for all I know. But at least I've gotten over a dozen views on that, so I'm pretty satisfied. And also, make sure you check out the links in the description below for The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye, my masterpiece of comic book cinema. It's not cinema yet, but hopefully someday. And we have also my link for my Twitter page. You can contact me there always and see what shenanigans I get up to there. Speaking of The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye, we have a update on my Fortune and Glory 2020 New England Comic-Con tour. And as I add the dates to these appearances on my website, make sure you check out my website in the description below for The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon. And just recently added a new date. We will be appearing, we as in me, plural, at Plastic City Comic-Con for the first time. Yes, I've been trying to get into this one, Plastic City Comic-Con, for the last couple of years, but I've been kind of late with my entry, fortunately this time got in. So we're going to be in Fitchburg, Massachusetts, Saturday, August 1st at the Wallace Civic Center for Keith Gleason's Plastic City Comic-Con. Keith Gleason, of course, the creator of Mighty Mascots, the comic. And I've met him a couple of times now. Really nice guy. I'm really pleased to be part of his convention here for hopefully the first time in several appearances in the future. It's a great event. It's going to be a family-friendly event. I believe I applied for the kids' room because, you know, like I said about I'm gonna be at KidsCon this year as well. It's all about the kids. You know what I mean? You kind of want to bring comics to the kids, comics that all members of the family can enjoy. Obviously, with a title, The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye, it's not like it's just for the youngins, but I try to make all my, you know, comics and work accessible to all ages. So, you know, it's not going to be something that the grown-ups are not going to be able to enjoy. It's something that basically is for all ages, but it's not going to alienate the kids. You know, a lot of families come when I'm at these conventions, and the parents kind of, you know, they give me the concerned look, and they're like, all right, how many swears are in this? Just how much bloodletting is in this? You know? And I have to, you know, put their minds at ease and say, there's no cursing, and there's very minimal blood. There really isn't any blood. It's certainly not gory. I would say violence the level of maybe an episode of Star Trek TOS, if you want to say that had blood, you know. But apart from that, you know, it's not gory or ghoulish in any form. Let's see, tickets are only $5, so if you're going to plan on attending the show, you're going to have a very happy wallet after the fact, because it's not going to be very expensive. Kids under 12 are free. So check out the link in the description below for my website, and you will see my appearances at Plastic City Comic-Con. Once again, August 1st, 2020 at the Wallace Civic Center in Fitchburg, Mass. And also appearing at KidsCon, June 14th at the Radisson Hotel in Nashua, New Hampshire, from 10 to 5. That is my third appearance there. Oh, yeah, the Plastic City Comic-Con is going to be from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's basically what they all are. They're all basically 10 to 5, 10 to 6. But very excited about this, and continue to check out my website. And more dates to be added. I'm sure I'm going to get a couple more. I try to do at least 3 cons, but I think I'm going to try to stretch it out a little more this year and try to do 4 or 5. We will see. It depends the availability. That's always, of course, a concern. Also, the prices. You know, if you have a convention or a library that you want yours truly to join and attend, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Like I said, I appreciate the libraries because they're usually very, you know, cost effective. Conventions I'm happy to go to, but again, the prices, you know, I usually don't make more than the entry fee, which has always been a problem, but you know, even if I break even, I consider it a plus, a net positive, to bring the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon out there to an unsuspecting public. So once again, check out my website in the description below for the Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye. We have a few sample pages there, a few preview pages there if you want to check it out. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement, a lot of action adventure. There's a lot of fun in the dialogue for me. My schooling in writing was basically just watching old comedies and 80s action TV shows. So that's why I always say, if you like old 80s action TV shows, The A-Team, The Incredible Hulk, Knight Rider, MacGyver, if you like that kind of stuff, you're going to like this. If you like classic comedy, the Marx Brothers, Laurel and Hardy, Abbott and Costello, Three Stooges, you'll probably like my sense of humor in this as well. And of course, it's all married with a art style that is hopefully sort of respectful of the Bruce Timm animated series style that he brought to DC. which was always my inspiration for my artwork. Once again, let's move on here, but check out the link in the description below for The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye. I want to thank you very much for joining us, and first story, let's talk first about the Morbius trailer that just came out. Morbius starring Jared Leto as the titular vampire, and we showed the image last week of what Morbius is going to look like in his ultimate transportation. Creepy as hell. Creepy as all get out, but he does look exactly like the comic, which, you know, that's a plus. I'm not that excited about this movie because, I was, like I said last week, I was always creeped out by this character as a kid. They had him in the animated series, the Spider-Man animated series, my favorite version, I suppose, of the Spider-Man animated series that have been out, as a pretty main player. He was like a top player in that show for, I don't know, probably a full season, maybe more. It seemed like he was in like 3 story arcs, and they brought in Blade and all kinds of stuff. I was a teenager at that point, and I kind of got more of an appreciation for the character of Michael Morbius. When I was little, you know, in the 80s and stuff, and he would show up in the comics, he would be really creepy looking and just kind of like, it turned me off to the character. I was like, man, he ugly, you know, so I really wasn't that interested. But he does have an interesting and tragic backstory that they're touching on here. And again, this is not a film that I think I needed. In comparison with Sony's other attempt so far, which is Venom. Venom I can see having a solo film. Venom, as much as I think he should be tied to Spider-Man, can exist probably on his own. Morbius definitely not, but they did address that apparently in the trailer. We get to see his origin. He's apparently has a blood disorder and has difficulty walking. He has some, you know, malady that he's trying to, as a scientist, as a physicist or whatever, trying to cure his own ailment, and testing some kind of radical bat therapy upon himself. He ends up unleashing this immortal bloodlust, where he has to feed on the living, making him, as he was called in the comics, the living vampire. Let's see. We get the cameo at the end of Michael Keaton. Now, apparently, this is going to be set in the continuity of the MCU Spider-Man films, the Tom Holland Spider-Man films, because we get the cameo of, apparently, Michael Keaton's Vulture. Again, I was really surprised at this, and this probably would have been something to really surprise viewers in the audience, you know, during the movie, but they are smart to put this at the end of the trailer, because I imagine this is the extent of Michael Keaton's role in this film. But, you know, my interest in the film has gone up probably about 50%, where it was down to like maybe 20. I've gained another 30% of interest in this film on Michael Keaton's involvement alone. Apparently, they are trying to convince us that this is going to be all connected to the MCU. Morbius apparently is going to have a part to play in the MCU going forward after this origin film. Or at the very least, maybe Tom Holland's Spider-Man, which is kind of more what I'm hoping is going to happen. They'll just get Tom Holland into a film completely taken care of by Sony. Kind of hard to understand how they're going to do this. Now, I think what the plan was originally for Sony to have a Sinister Six film. And that possibly is what they're doing with Michael Keaton here. They're setting up a Sinister Six, because we have Vulture, we have Morbius, who I guess is an anti-hero and not really a villain, but it depends how they want to play him. We got Venom, who they already pretty much sold as a hero, an anti-hero. We have Mysterio, who is supposedly dead, although that's probably going to change, let's face it, in the next film. This could very well be, I guess, the starting ground for the Sinister Six. We also, of course, had the hint of the Scorpion in Homecoming. So that brings us up to what? 3, 4, maybe if you want to count Carnage. They would have to introduce probably a few more characters at this point. I don't know. It's hard because it seems like we're setting up a lot of anti-heroes. I mean, we got to have the full-on villains for the Sinister Six. I mean, the Vulture kind of was played as being semi-sympathetic to Peter Parker. Morbius is an anti-hero. Venom's an anti-hero. I mean, yeah, we could use Carnage, I guess, but that still leaves us with Carnage, Scorpion, and, I don't know, Shocker. It's not really heavy hitters. And he says, what does Michael Keaton say in this? He says, you left the good guy ways behind or something like that, and what's up, Doc? So, that's pretty cool. And let's see, also the other hint we have here, as you see here in the background, Spider-Man with someone putting graffiti over the image saying murderer. Because, of course, as we left him in Far From Home, which I gotta watch that movie. I bought the movie, even though I said that movie done broke me. Oh, man. I'm gonna sit through it again. I'm gonna see if I have any other reaction to it after a year. And, you know, I don't know. I don't know if I should really put myself through it, but I'm gonna try. I'm gonna see if I can find anything good about Far From Home, apart from Jake Gyllenhaal, who I thought did a pretty good job as Mysterio. But really, the rest of that film, pretty much, yeah, not that impressed. Also, you know, people have also been saying, well, this is an image of Spider-Man as taken from the Raimi films. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. The costume does kind of look like that, but you got to remember, I don't think that is hinting that this takes place in the Raimi universe. Because, well, for one good reason, we already have Michael Keaton as the Vulture involved, so it probably would be a stretch to say that this is somehow reflecting on Sam Raimi's involvement or, I don't know, Tobey Maguire's involvement. I doubt it. Also, since it says murderer, where we left him in Far From Home, where he was accused of murdering Quentin Beck, chances are this is just the image they used, you know, for the trailer. I don't think this has anything to do with Raimi's Spider-Man films, which I'm a huge fan of, but I don't think this is anything to do with it. So, yeah, let me know what you think about the Morbius trailer. Again, I'm kind of interested more now, knowing that it's connected to the MCU, or in some sense connected with the MCU Spider-Man. Again, Jared Leto, a good actor, you know, people kind of hold it against him that Joker wasn't that great in Suicide Squad, but again, he's an Academy Award-winning actor, and they seem to be doing right by the origin. It's connected to the Spider-Man universe. This could be, you know, a decent film, you know. I'm not prepared to completely close the door on seeing it now, but have to wait and see. Alright, so let's check out, we have some news about the cast of Legends of Tomorrow. Legends of Tomorrow, let's see. Olivia Swann's Astra Lodge, or Logue, is that how you pronounce that? To the right, she's the one on the right there, is expected to be the true big bad of the 5th season of Legends of Tomorrow, as teased in the Season 4 final. You know, Astra, that's from Constantine's show, and now she's all grown up and so on and so forth. She won't be the only villain for our time-traveling heroes. We already know Genghis Khan, played by Terry Chen, will be one of their foes, but we've also learned another nefarious figure will threaten the Legends. Per Deadline, Warrior star Joanna Vanderheim has scored a recurring role on Legends as one of the big bads of Season 5. Vanderham's character is currently nameless, but the villain is being described as a ruthless killing machine with daggers made of bones. Wherever she goes, death follows. Additionally, it's been revealed that the mysterious new character will have ties to Maisie Richardson Sellers' Charlie, a shapeshifter who joined the team after escaping Hell. The 5th season of Legends of Tomorrow is set to premiere January 21st, and we'll see Katie Lotz, Brandon Routh, Dominic Purcell, Nick Zano, Jess McKellen, Courtney Ford, Matt Ryan, Ramona Young, Tala, Ash returning to reprise their roles. So, I don't know. I don't know exactly how this is going to go, but now you know, and knowing is half the battle for Legends Season 2. I mean, Season 5. Did I say 2? Alrighty, let's take a look at... I didn't take a look at the Black Widow trailer. I know they put out an additional trailer. I don't remember there being anything there that I needed to really comment on. So I suppose if you have any thoughts on the Black Widow second trailer or sneak peek, whatever that was considered, you can let me know what you thought about it in the comments, and I'll give it another look. Maybe next week we'll talk about it. I don't know. But now, let's talk about Batgirl. Batgirl! Karen Gillian. Famous for playing Nebula, which I've always said, one of Johnny Torch's rules of life is never make a beautiful woman look homely. But that is what they did with Karen Gillian, and of course, it worked out pretty well. I mean, she did bring a lot to that character, and I'm sure as an actress she enjoyed playing it. So, you know, it worked out. I think it worked out particularly because she is so unrecognizable in that role. I mean, you know, visually unrecognizable. I mean, her performance was good, but, you know, you could probably put her in the MCU in another role, and she would still, you know, with the voice modulation and everything, be unrecognizable as also of being Nebula. But the DCEU is the place that she's needed. She really is needed as Batgirl. She's my choice as Batgirl because I think she has, you know, I'm going to say, for lack of a better term, the chutzpah of Batgirl. I mean, there are a lot of redheaded girls. I know Jane Levy is mentioned a lot, and she's, you know, I believe very talented and could play the role. There, you know, a couple of others have been mentioned, but I would say Karen Gillian is made for this role because I think she also has sort of the oomph that is needed for a Barbara Gordon. Let's see. During a recent interview, she was asked what pop culture icon she would like to play if the opportunity were to present itself, and it seems Barbara Gordon is at the top of her list. Batgirl would be pretty cool, she exclaimed, before jokingly adding, yeah, she's a redhead. Asked if she would like to direct a comic book movie, Gillian once again pointed to Batgirl being a character she would like to get her hands on. Batgirl would be cool for that as well. My favorite films are in that world. My favorite films in that world are dark, and my favorite one is Dark Knight. I just love the way that was directed so much. I would love to work in that kind of world as the director. Let's see. Batgirl, while the hero is often portrayed as being in her teens, early 20s, definitely could. Gillian could definitely pull off the latter. All right, so yeah, like I said, I really need this to happen. I need this to happen, but unfortunately, the buttheads at DCEU that are running Warner Brothers or whatever, they don't care. They don't care about getting someone that looks like the role into the role. Now, we already have the character of Commissioner Gordon race changed in The Batman, the Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves collaboration. Of course, they already race changed Catwoman with Zoe Kravitz. There's no reason to believe that Barbara Gordon won't be race changed as well, particularly if they're sticking with that continuity. As we know, the redheads are a endangered species in film, particularly in superhero film, so I am not getting my hopes up that we're going to see this happen. However, again, these movies pretty much just cast themselves. You have a talented actress who actually looks like the character that she is meant to portray. But no, we have to play the SJW card. We have to make sure that there is, quote-unquote, diversity as the main objective. We have to make sure that, you know, the mighty god diversity is being sacrificed to daily on the altar of cinema. And I've gone over it so many times, I'm sure my audience is tired of it, but it is sickening to me. It's sickening because, you know, the movies that we've had, the recent run of movies, going back to the 2000s at least, they were built on having the characters look like the actors, and vice versa. Chris Evans looks like Steve Rogers. You know, you put a little bleach in his hair or whatever, but he looks like the all-American blue-eyed boy that Captain America was supposed to be. Same thing with Thor. You've got, you know, Chris Hemsworth looking exactly like you would expect Thor to look. I don't know why there is this new, well, we all know it's because of the SJWs, but there's this new edict that's gone out where it's the leading ladies now that are being race changed. Before it was the supporting characters. It was the Alicia Masters, it was the Perry Whites, and, you know, a lot of us are not going to protest because we have a secondary character getting race changed. I don't particularly like it in any manner, but, you know, that wasn't going to be called for a boycott. But now at this point when we have the SJWs are putting their hooks in, and they're digging in, and they're saying, look, we're going to race change all the leading ladies now. It's gone from secondary characters that we have to do this little diversity bull crap to the leading ladies. It's just a matter of time when they're going to go to the lead heroes. So I'm pitching my tents now and saying, look, I am not going to support any more of these films, like the Batman, where they're race-changing Catwoman, like the Spider-Man franchise in the MCU, where apparently now we're going to double down on Zendaya being MJ. You know, you got to make a statement eventually at some point and say, look, we want you to cast actors and actresses that look like the character. Right now it seems to be the trend where they're focusing on actresses. But, like I said, it's going to be the main heroes. And, again, I don't personally myself have a problem with diversity if you are going to choose diverse characters. I've said it countless times where Static Shock should have a movie at this point. There's no excuse for it. You know, I always say that you start with Hal Jordan as the Green Lantern, but of course, having Jon Stewart as a Green Lantern, you know, it's a no-brainer. At this point, there should have been a Hal Jordan Green Lantern series or film where we would have been introduced to Jon Stewart. And there, of course, other characters as well. And we're seeing a lot of them, too. I mean, that's where there should be equal room for everybody at the table. I mean, we're getting Legends of Shang-Chi movie. We're getting, of course, Black Panther's already been out. It's not like it's just an either-or. It's not like, well, we can't just, you know, put out actors that are in, you know, the same race as the character and put out other films. No. You can stick to doing just that. You can just have the actors look like the characters and have the diverse films where we have, you know, a complete black cast with Black Panther, with complete Asian cast with Shang-Chi. You know, do a White Tiger film with a Latino cast. This really is a no-brainer. You know what I mean? It really shouldn't be like, you know, where we have to do, you know, both, where we're still doing this and then we're still having this discussion today in 2020 where we can't have Batgirl look like Batgirl because somehow we have to sacrifice on the altar of diversity. Anyway, that's my annual. It was the first time this year I had to go on my anti-SJW rant and how I can't stand personally the SJW race changing of characters. All right, before we get to our final story of the night here, kind of a brief show, right? I don't know. You know, I got time to delve deep into some of these deeper topics here. But there was a to-do on Twitter yesterday, which I don't understand. I guess the rumor was out that the Kenobi series from Disney Plus was going to be put on the shelf or something. Got a little water with the apple cider vinegar. That's what I'm sipping as my beverage of choice, if you excuse me for a moment. But let's see. What is the story here? The news seemingly originated on a parody news account called Discussing Film, and social media's self-proclaimed scoopers spent the evening trying to confirm its validity. Well, they wasted their time because the Wrap has confirmed that the story is totally inaccurate and that the show is still moving forward as planned with no changes. Some sites actually ran stories claiming that Obi-Wan Kenobi had been cancelled, but there's no such truth to the matter. It was surprising to see a few seemingly legitimate reporters sharing silly, cryptic tweets, adding further fuel to the fire with cryptic gifs, which is becoming all too frequent these days, leading to a lot of misinformation. A lot of fans out there already believe that Lucasfilm is in desperate need of new leadership, and the series not moving forward, no doubt, would have seen everyone calling for Kathleen Kennedy's head. As of now, we don't know what the plan is for the franchise on the big screen. Taika Waititi is reportedly being eyed for a movie, but has a few years ahead of him. Things thankfully don't seem to be in trouble on the small screen, and this particular rumor has been debunked. So, I guess that's what was going on. I've seen a little scuttlebutt about this, but I didn't really didn't pay it no heed, didn't pay it no never mind. But in case any of you out there are worried, apparently plans are going forward with Kenobi. And I'm really excited about that. That's the only thing I'm excited about for Star Wars going forward. They really can't do anything else now, but just give us the Kenobi series, and hopefully, it's gonna have some talent behind it with Ewan McGregor. Hopefully, we'll get Hayden Christensen on board in some capacity. Hopefully, we'll get Joel Edgerton back as Uncle Owen, and they could very well make this an ongoing series, and introduce us to some of the other interesting events, I suppose, that would go on in the life of Obi-Wan Kenobi while he was out there on Tatooine. It doesn't mean that he was completely, tied to just sitting there in the Jundland Wastes. They could come up with something interesting. Like I said, I would personally very much like to see him do battle with Darth Maul again, and the final fate of Darth Maul. As I said a million times, I hate what they did to finish that rivalry on Rebels. I would have much preferred that they could have very easily stretched that into a movie. Now apparently a TV series, but hopefully they go back on that and they'll just have the actual confrontation between the final confrontation between Obi-Wan and Darth Maul be in the TV series. I'm hoping for that anyway. But again, remains to be seen. Okay, so another day, another video about Star Wars going down in flames. Yes, I thought this picture was apropos of Star Wars in its current state. As I said before, if you've watched my review of Rise of Skywalker, didn't hate it, didn't think it was horrible. I think it was kind of, taking the pieces that were given him by Ruin Johnson and Kathleen Kennedy. I think J.J. Abrams did the best he could with a flawed, failed franchise and put together the pieces as best he could to give us a semi-decent finale. But you may ask, what would Colin Trevorrow do? WWCTD. He said no mas after seeing what Ruin Johnson did to The Last Jedi. Kind of backed away from it, and probably for good reason. But we have the script here, at least I have the Cliff Notes version of what the script was going to be like for Duel of the Fates is what he was going to call it. It was apparently going to be, a tribute to, the entire saga as a whole. All 9 episodes we're going to play in. And, not to say J.J. Abrams didn't, I guess, try to play to that too, but let's just read the Cliff Notes here and see if it was any good. Colin Trevorrow's Episode 9 would have been titled Duel of the Fates, and that's obviously a reference to the iconic piece of music that played out over the battle between Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace. The opening crawl, meanwhile, reads as follows. The iron grip of the First Order has spread to the farthest reaches of the galaxy. Only a few scattered planets remain unoccupied. Traitorous acts are punishable by death. Determined to suffocate a growing unrest, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren has silenced all communication between neighboring systems. So, right off the bat here, there's not going to be no Palpatine, I don't think. Palpatine wasn't a factor in the script. I'm always surprised when I have to read that line, Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. Did he come across as Supreme Leader to you? Just didn't feel that way, did it? We'll continue with the crawl. Led by General Leia Organa. Again, I can't stand calling her General Leia. Do we have to do that? Can't we just... Oh, gosh, never mind. The Resistance has planned a secret mission to prevent their annihilation and forge a path to freedom. So, again, that's the crawl. It sounds very generic, very, you know, as bad. I'm going to compare it to The Rise of Skywalker, and to be honest with you, so far, that doesn't sound that great. I mean, compared to The Rise of Skywalker, which was a generic crawl to begin with, at least that had a little more oomph in it. The action would have kicked off at the Kuwait shipyards where Rose Tico and BB-8 were attempting to infiltrate one of the First Order ship factories. Finn and Poe also would have been present, and their plan involved destroying the power shaft which supplies raw ore to the factory from the orbital ring below the moon they're on. So again, this don't sound that great, but at least it sounds like we're starting with sort of a you know, a Return of the Jedi battle on Endor type thing where they're doing some kind of plot. Unfortunately, things go wrong and the First Order is able to contain the blast. The character named Admiral Vaughn dismisses the Resistance tactics as pitiful, but the tide soon turns. Rey, disguised as a Tusken Raider, reveals her new weapon, a double-bladed lightsaber, which is a hybrid of her staff and Luke's blade, the one destroyed in Last Jedi. Interesting. See, I don't know about that, because isn't a double-bladed lightsaber sort of more a Sith weapon? That's what I took anyway from Darth Maul using it, because obviously a weapon used for destruction and damage would be more dangerous, you know, a double-bladed one. You know, maybe not, but I think so. Anyhow, Rey disguised as Tusken Raider, that's interesting. A battle ensues, and our heroes manage to escape with a Star Destroyer. That color me interested. I don't know. That sounds interesting. It's then that the Knife 9, a ship carrying the Knights of Ren, arrives, and one of them kills the Admiral for his failure. Well, that sounds interesting, because from what we've seen, the Knights of Ren are a bunch of pansies. You know, they really weren't much. Not much was made of them after all the to-do about, oh, the Knights of Ren, right? But no, nothing happened. Return to Coruscant. The once vibrant city now looks very different, and the planet has become a stronghold for the First Order. That would have been interesting. I think there was a real lack of going back to the original planets of the, you know, the original saga, if you want to put it that way, both trilogies. When you think of it, they tried to do just all new planets. And I'm not against the fact that we had a lot of new planets. I think I'd have preferred that in a way. But it was like, why couldn't we just go to Yavin in The Force Awakens? Why couldn't Rey have just been on Tatooine? It really feels like if you're going to do that, just stick with it. You're going to do the desert planet, might as well just do Tatooine. You're going to do the jungle hideout, just do Yavin 4, right? I don't know. Let's see, General Hux has become Chancellor Hux, and the traitor who helped the Resistance steal that Star Destroyer is executed before him. Kind of makes sense, really. The fact that he was a traitor in Rise of Skywalker was kind of expected, but I don't know, I kind of feel like he could have rose the ranks, you know what I mean? I don't know. He then meets with other members of the First Order and a variety of alien warlords who are all too aware that there is a Last Jedi. This council demands to know the location of Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, but all Hux knows is that he's searching for something of great power that will help them. Let's see. Kylo Ren, who now has stubble, is alone on Mustafar except for a droid that's said to be similar to Darth Maul in appearance. A Darth Maul droid? He is haunted by the Force ghost of his uncle, Luke Skywalker. That's interesting. I might have liked to have seen that. I would have liked to have seen that more after he turned good, that Luke would have came to him. That was something I'd have preferred seeing, but this is an interesting take. They argue back and forth about Ren's path leading him to little more than an empty tomb, but the villain vows to become more powerful than any Jedi. It's then that he finds a Sith holocron, which reveals a message from Emperor Palpatine. It was meant for Darth Vader as a contingency in case Luke killed him. Vader was to take Luke to see Tor Valam, a Sith master and Palpatine's teacher. Now this is interesting. Now let's unpack that a little bit. Let's see. Ren's path leads him to little more than an empty tomb. I guess it's Palpatine's tomb, because it's a Sith holocron from Palpatine. It was meant for Darth Vader in case Luke killed Palpatine. I guess, well, this would have been our cameo of, Ian McDiarmid. So we still would have seen him. Vader was to take Luke to see Tor Valam, a Sith master, and Palpatine's teacher. So this again kind of flies in the face of the rule of two, because not only would that break the rule of two, because Palpatine's teacher would be still alive, even though, Palpatine had many apprentices since then. I mean, he had, after Palpatine had Maul, he also had Dooku, he also had Anakin. He was trying to get Luke, and apparently would have killed Vader in the process. And also, we're also led to believe that Palpatine's master was Plagueis, right? I mean, he doesn't come out and say that, but from his mannerisms while he's giving the story of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise, he makes it seem like it was his master and that he killed him. It also seems very much like when he's telling Vader, or Anakin at the point, who's on the verge of becoming Vader, that only one learned the secret, but we could find out the secret together. So, it does sound like there's an opening there where maybe, he didn't have Plagueis as a master, but it seems very much like he did. So I think this would fly in the face of the rule of two. I think this would fly in the face of Plagueis being his master. So I would reject this, quite honestly. After the holocron scans Kylo, it releases red lightning that explodes, burning his face. So I guess this is probably the point where he probably goes back to the Kylo Ren mask, right? I guess so. Let's see. Rey still wants to save Kylo Ren. Back at the Resistance base, everyone is shocked to see a Star Destroyer land on the planet. That's the thing about J.J. Abrams. You always got to have these big ships coming up out of the water or landing on the, ground. I don't know. There's reportedly a funny moment with Rey using a Jedi mind trick on officers who were still on board. That's cute. Talking to Finn, she admits that she's not sure she has what it takes to be a Jedi, especially when so many people have such high expectations of her. Well, again, right off the bat, we couldn't have that, right? We couldn't have that because Rey is just, she's the bestest at whatever she does from the beginning on, so we couldn't have her having any self-doubts or perhaps not living up to expectations. Let's see. Talk turns to Kylo Ren, and she's unable to explain their connection after telling Finn about her nightmares. He believes that Rey should shut him out as he can't change, but the Jedi reminds him that Finn is proof it's never too late to change. Yeah, I can see that. That would probably be a conversation I could see them having. Let's see. A plan starts to form. The Star Destroyer could help turn the tide for the Resistance, as it still has most of its weapons. They just need an army to use it. Rey, meanwhile, has been studying the Jedi text from Ahch-To, and discovers that there's a communication system called a Force Beacon beneath the Jedi Temple in Coruscant that could be used to reach out to allies across the galaxy. That would probably flesh the story out a little bit better than what they did, which was just Lando's going to look up some old buddies, and then we'll have an entire fleet ready to fight the Last Order. The kicker is that the First Order will be powerless to stop it, as it predates even Empire technology. I don't know. Luke also appears as a Force ghost to Rey, and just as he's pushing Kylo Ren to embrace Ben Solo, he's pushing Rey to get stronger. I like this. I like the fact that Luke is more of a player in this. You could tell that Mark Hamill was disenfranchised with the role of Luke Skywalker after The Last Jedi, and understandably so. And it did feel kind of like he was phoning it in on the Rise of Skywalker. That's not to say he gave a bad performance, but I could tell he was kind of like, this is what I wanted to do in the last film, and now you're letting me do it, and I've got maybe 3 minutes of screen time to do it in. You know, I think you would have had him on board a lot better if you'd have given him something to work with. Give him something to put his teeth into. It was just terrible. I mean, a lot of people want to say, oh, he had such a great performance in Last Jedi. He might have gotten an Oscar for that performance, but he wasn't playing Luke Skywalker. That's what was the most aggravating thing about that movie. Let's see, you know, more interplay between he and the main protagonists would have been really good. Kylo, meanwhile, has had smelted Mandalorian armor applied to his face. We're not entirely sure what that means for his appearance. Yeah, what the heck does that mean? Smelted Mandalorian armor applied to his face. Okay, I just had to read that again to see if I could figure out what that meant. He proceeds to belittle Hux before ordering him to deal with the Resistance while he takes care of Rey. Rey asks Luke what it means for there to be balance in the Force. As the dark suffocates the light, light extinguishes the dark, over and over and over again. She's clearly doubting herself, and Luke can sense that she's angry. Their exchange boils down to him trying to convince her to remain on the path she's on and not give up on the Force or becoming a Jedi. Again, this sounds good. This is what should have been in The Last Jedi. This is clearly them also trying to apply a Band-Aid to The Last Jedi. Once again, The Last Jedi, it's a holocaust. You know what I mean? It just caused so much destruction to the fabric of the franchise that, you know, no matter what they did, they couldn't repair it. If I was given free reign, I think I could have repaired it, but this is not my take. Well, let's just go back to what they would have done here in Colin Trevorrow's version. Let's see. One team, Rose, Finn, R2-D2, and C-3PO, head to Coruscant to light the beacon, which, again, it makes sense to keep those together. I mean, like I've said, I don't have anything against Rose Tico. I didn't think she was a bad character. I just think it was bad writing that made her a character that was not, you know, particularly endearing. But I wouldn't have had a problem with her. I mean, you know, a lot of people want to say, you know, she's just there for diversity and whatever. And yeah, that could be the case. I mean, if you handed me the cast of characters they had for the whole sequel trilogy and said, you have to have, you know, the Black Stormtrooper, the Asian female pilot, the, you know, Latino pilot or something like that, I can still give you a good story. That doesn't mean that because they're diverse characters that they're necessarily going to be bad. I think you could have written all these characters extremely well. They just didn't do that. They didn't follow through on anything of the promise of any of these things. And you know, they kind of buried Rose Tico. They kind of, well, they hid Finn having Force powers until the last act, and then he's just Force sensitive. You know, it's a sad state of affairs. Another team, Rey, Poe, and Chewbacca. This would have been interesting to see more of Rey and Poe. They kind of had this Han and Leia dynamic, and I think they were afraid maybe that they would be seen like that as another potential love ship. But I don't think they ever got that far. But still, it was a possibility if they ever kept them two together. Rey, Poe, and Chewbacca are heading to a planet where Rey is looking for someone to help her figure out what she should do. That is as specific as this description gets, unfortunately. Okay. Before Rey leaves, she tells Leia, who remains at the base overseeing the Resistance, that she believes there's still good in Kylo Ren, something even his mother doubts. All Leia wants Rey to know is that her story is her own, and that she shouldn't let anyone tell her what to become. Again, feminist platitudes that thankfully did not make the final draft. I mean, is she going against Luke's advice here to stay on the path and become a Jedi by saying be whatever you want to be? What if she wanted to be a Sith? That's not really what she should be, and I don't think Leia would encourage that. Kylo Ren fully seems to be embracing the dark side at this point, taking Darth Vader's mask and saying he finally understands him now. You allowed love to cloud your judgment. He proceeds to take his grandfather's helmet and throws it from a balcony, shattering it. This is interesting. Alright. Things start to get a little vague at this point, but the First Order tracks down its stolen Star Destroyer, and the Resistance is forced to go on the run. That first team manages to turn on the beacon in the Jedi Temple, and we then see people around the galaxy receiving the signal, including Bosk. Why the hell would Bosk be involved in all this? I mean, I don't follow too much of the, ancillary stories or whatever, but, I don't know. 40 years after The Empire Strikes Back, do we really need Bosk to be a player? I don't know. Let's see. The second team, meanwhile, is being pursued by the Knights of Ren to a planet called Bonadin. Kylo Ren arrives on Remnacor and comes face to face with Tor Valum. He's an alien of unknown origin who is 7,000 years old. Wow, he's a little bit younger than Yoda, right? 9,000 years old Yoda is. He is reportedly very Lovecraftian in appearance. That would mean what? Reptilian? Something like that? I'm not sure. I'm not up on my Lovecraftian stuff too much. Kylo begins training with him, and in a throwback to Empire Strikes Back cave scene, Ren comes face to face with Darth Vader and loses what is described as a brutal battle between them. Yeah, that's interesting. I would like to see a dark side take on that. That might be interesting. Where you go into the cave with your weapons because you want to defeat whatever is in there and thus gain strength as a Sith prerogative. That might be interesting. I would have liked to see that perhaps utilized in some manner. Let's see. Poe, meanwhile, has taken Rey to a seer who is able to pull information from her memories, including a star chart of some sort and her visions with Kylo Ren. The Knights then show up, and a lightsaber battle ensues, which Rey is ultimately victorious in. Even in this version, it seems their role was minimal. Yeah, they were always there just to be cannon fodder for some reason. I'm not sure why they couldn't come up with anything more interesting for them. Let's see. Eventually, Rey and Kylo Ren arrive on Mortis. Leia recruits Lando, so he finally shows up here in this, to organize the smugglers and take the fight to the First Order. Rose, who reportedly had a much larger role in this film, is captured and tortured by the villains, but makes her escape and rejoins her friends. So again, I guess that was sort of just a subplot just to give her something to do. She gets tortured and escapes on her own because, don't need no man in this galaxy far, far away. Finn, alongside R2 and 3PO, managed to start a citizens' uprising on the ground in Coruscant. I am all for more of 3PO and R2 working together. That is something, for some reason, that was not a mandate in any of the sequel trilogy. That is something I would have pushed for to the forefront. 3PO and R2 have to work together at least 2 out of the 3 films, like they did in the original trilogy, and like they did more or less in the prequel trilogy. At least 2 of those 3 films, they had a lot of things to do together. I suppose. Maybe not 3. The Phantom Menace, they just met them. But they did have scenes together, is what I'm trying to say. It wasn't just, like, independent, the both of them. I'm rambling. Let's see, the final battle. Leia brings her forces to Coruscant. Now, of course, a lot of this would have had to have been altered, supposedly because Carrie Fisher's untimely passing, of course. But this, of course, is just what they were planning directly in wake of the Last Jedi being what it was. Leia brings her forces to Coruscant for a final battle with the First Order. I would have liked to see that. That would have been interesting. And fights ensue both on the ground and in the sky. Chewbacca ends up flying an X-Wing. Why wouldn't he be in the Millennium Falcon? Well, you know, at least we got that with... That was done well with Lando and Chewie in the Falcon. I like that better. But it would be interesting to see, of course. Chewie in an X-Wing. Yeah, that'd have been interesting. While that's happening, Rey and Kylo battle on Mortis using Force energy to pull from one another. Now, what does that mean? They're pulling the Force out of one and giving it to the other, and then putting it back on the other and giving it back to... I don't know. Alright, during the fight, Ren reveals that he killed Rey's parents at the behest of Supreme Leader Snoke. That's interesting. So they were going to always back down on it that her parents were... Nobody's sold her for drinking money. I guess. They could have still been nobodies that sold her for drinking money, and then Snoke wanted them dead anyway? I don't know. Before the Force ghosts of Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda ultimately appear to try and save Ben, but are unsuccessful. That's interesting. So we're going to have the ghosts of Luke, Obi-Wan, and Yoda. Would this be the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan? I would have liked to have seen this. I would have very much liked to have seen this, but I don't know how it would have played in that setting. I don't think that should have been a battle scene. That should have happened, you know, at some point. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it working there. Also, we don't really get any understanding what happened to Tor Valum, or whatever his name is. What is his name again? Let me look back here. Tor Valum, I guess? I don't know. Valum? Let's see. They are unsuccessful, and he's ultimately extinguished. We don't know exactly how he dies or what happens to that ancient Sith, but there were clearly no plans for the villain to find any redemption. So this is very vague. I thought this was going to be a script that was really going to give us some details, but it's basically something, something, Kylo Ren does something. Something, something, alien helps him as his new master. Something, something, they both die. So this is not, I mean, for a lot of people to say, oh, I would have loved this to be filmed instead, this seems just to be a fragment of a script. I would have to go back and see if I can find something more to deal with this, but this does not sound very satisfying as a conclusion after all that. But again, give me a fleshed out script and maybe I would change my thoughts. But there are, we're close to the end here, but I would say there are a few elements from this I would have liked to see adopted for Rise of Skywalker, but I wouldn't say that this script should have been filmed instead of Rise of Skywalker. I would rather have taken what we got and just implemented some of these things to supersede some of the dumb stuff we got in Rise of Skywalker. The only other details provided are that the Resistance ultimately wins the day, and Harrison Ford still would have made a cameo appearance as Han Solo in order to confront his son, although they don't explain exactly much more than that. Hopefully more details will be revealed soon, but it definitely sounds like it would have been better than Rise of Skywalker in many ways. Perhaps not as good in a few others. Well, that's their opinion. But yeah, that's about it. I would agree. I think like I said, some things there probably would have been better to implement. Others, no way. No way. I think there was some things that would have worked better. I think giving Rose Tico a little bit more of a role would have ultimately been better. I think maybe the plan of Kylo trying to get more in touch with his Sith before, you know, his Sith pursuits before he ended up becoming more, you know, turning to the light side might have worked. I don't know. I would have probably stuck with the Palpatine clone over Tor Valum if that was the choice that I was given. I don't know. Definitely would have had more Luke Skywalker. Definitely would have had the ghosts of Luke, Ben, and Yoda involved in some capacity. So yeah, some of those things would have worked well. And I'm all for it. Let's see. There is another... I don't know, do you want me to read this? I've got another one here. It says here, yesterday, details about Colin Trevorrow's plans for Star Wars Duel of the Fates found their way online, and we brought you in-depth recaps of both that and the final act. Now, we have intel from a later draft, and there are a number of key changes. These includes catering for the tragic death of Carrie Fisher, and a new villain so that Kylo Ren wasn't a full-blown villain, it was instead a more sympathetic character who did ultimately find some redemption. So I guess this is, and I don't know if this is the script that Trevorrow was still behind, or if this is what they did, you know, other writers tried to amend Trevorrow's script in order to facilitate some of these changes that they were going to make. Let's see, we decided to focus mostly on the changes here, so you should definitely go back and read the previous script, which we just did, and fill in the gaps. Okay, let's see. Trevorrow and Derek Connolly definitely had some unique ideas for the Rise of Skywalker. It's easy to see which ideas Abrams and Terrio lifted for their version. Okay. The opening of the movie is very much the same, but the Resistance can no longer communicate with the rest of the galaxy as the First Order has found a way to block their transmissions. The plan is still to attack the planet, likely Coruscant, which the villains use as their base, but it's now the Jedi Spire of Ossus that Rey needs to reach in order to send a message out to the rest of the galaxy rather than the old Jedi Temple. Kylo Ren, meanwhile, is on a mission to kill Rey so that he can finally embrace the dark side. That's kind of what we got, I guess. Speaking of Rey, she's created her own double-sided lightsaber, which works like a boomerang, quote-unquote. That's interesting. A boomerang lightsaber. Yeah, no. Again, with the double-sided lightsabers, no. Don't. They did better not to do that, not to play with that, I don't think. All that kind of crazy stuff they should have done with the Knights of Ren. You know, give them weird, whacked-out weapons and stuff. That would have been cool. Instead of being just like some grungy boy band of the 90s and what they were. I don't know. The Knights of Ren board a ship called the Knife Nine in this version of the movie, and the biggest difference is that they also got names and personalities. Well, see, that's what we needed. That would have been better. I'd like to have seen that. One of them is revealed to be a woman who, like Darth Maul, is from Dathomir. That would have been interesting. A female Dathomirian. That could have been interesting. With Kylo Ren off on his own mission, she's in charge, and even General Hux reports to her. Well, of course. Did you think otherwise? Why is this important? Well, we'll get to that later, but she doubts Kylo's ability to usher in a new era of darkness for her and this group. That's interesting because she's probably going to be our main villain. Let's see. C-3PO going senile. We don't currently have a lot of details on this point, but in Trevorrow's version of Episode 9, C-3PO would have begun showing his age. Nah, I don't like that. I don't think we should be making fun of C-3PO or the aged. Whether that means physically or mentally isn't clear, but this subplot being used for comedic effect seems likely, and 3PO is always good for some laughs. Yeah, I love C-3PO. He's one of my favorite characters, and I'm so happy that he did get some screen time that was memorable in Rise of Skywalker, and they probably would have tried to give him something like that here, I guess. In this version of the movie, Kylo Ren wasn't going to track down an ancient Sith master and would have instead just been trying to find the tomb with a weapon which would ensure his victory. However, rather than a hologram of Emperor Palpatine, it would have been Darth Plagueis. And upon watching his message, the Supreme Leader's face would have once again been left scarred after being hit with Red Force lightning, due to the fact he isn't a true Sith, entirely one with the dark side. This is a little more interesting. Now, as much as I love Palpatine and all that, I think it probably would have been better to have Plagueis have some kind of role in this, just as a hologram. That would have been more interesting, I think. Red Force lightning, that's interesting. That scars him because he isn't truly a Sith. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could go with it. I'm not sure. On the verge of death, Kylo would have been saved by some of the planet's locals and been moved by their selflessness, a sign that this version would have been on the path of redemption. So he wouldn't have killed them, so he kind of didn't sell out to the dark side yet. That's, you know, an interesting point. Let's see. The previous Duel of the Fates draft was turned in a week before Carrie Fisher's death, so some changes obviously had to be made. In this screenplay, the Resistance would have had to flee from the First Order, and Leia would have been badly injured in the melee. She gives Rey one last message before dying and fading into the Force, while an enraged Kylo Ren also feels his mother's death, but is calmed by the aliens who have nursed him back to health. They really want to scar up Kylo Ren, don't they? He's always getting his face scarred. Pursued by the Knights of Ren, Poe Dameron pushes the Millennium Falcon too hard as they try to make their escape, and it crashes into a frozen ocean. The ship begins to sink, and after Rey uses her lightsaber to save them from drowning, she swims back to receive the ancient Jedi text from inside. So does that mean the end of the Millennium Falcon? Oh man, I wouldn't have wanted to see that. That's like the Enterprise blowing up in Star Trek 3. That was scarring as a kid. I don't want to see that. Although it doesn't say that it's completely destroyed, so. Kylo Ren is in a bad way and seemingly relying on droids to keep him alive after being badly burned and scarred by the Force lightning. Solani notices that he's found the Sith holocron. Who is Solani? It doesn't say here in this. Alright. Solani notices that he's found the Sith holocron they were looking for, and points out that he now... Was that Solani? Is that the one, the dark side character that was supposed to be looking like a female Darth Maul? Maybe. I don't know. Solani notices that he's found the Sith holocron they were looking for, and points out that he now needs to sever his connection with both Luke Skywalker and Rey in order to clear his path to the dark side. Donning a quote-unquote new, more savage mask, which is said to be similar in appearance to Darth Vader, Ren now knows what he must do. He already had a mask similar to Darth Vader. What does that mean? Finn's subplot remains largely unchanged, but he does come to blows with a First Order stormtrooper whose helmet falls off as they fight. He tells him to remember his past before being taken by the First Order, and tells him to get a name and a cause that's actually worth fighting for. He later takes the name Raffi, I don't know, R-A-F-E, and joins our heroes during the movie's final battle. That's kind of, I guess, what they kind of decided to do with Jenna, to an extent. There's also a throwback to Rian Johnson introducing those Force-sensitive children at the end of The Last Jedi, as a kid is shown with a Rey doll clearly inspired by the reputation she's gained in the galaxy. Aww, isn't that cute? Much of the movie deals with Rey coming to terms with some of her darker impulses and anger about her past, something that comes to a head when she battles the Knights of Ren. In a moment of pure rage, she kills one of them with purple lightning that explodes from her fingertips. That's interesting. Again, I don't know about that. If she's not a Sith, does she really have dark side powers? You know what I mean? You have to become a Sith. It's not, that easy, I don't think. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe it is that easy. Rey makes Poe and Chewie leave her so she can tackle what comes next alone. Deciding she needs to face Kylo Ren and end this, Rey goes full-on Jedi with a robe and everything. Luke warns her that he can feel her anger building and reveals that the Knights of Ren are indeed some of his former students whom Supreme Leader Snoke and Kylo Ren managed to turn to the dark side. That's right, we kind of forgot that, right? But wasn't that kind of the way when he destroyed the Jedi Temple, Ben? He took some of those students as Knights of Ren? We didn't get any of that in The Rise of Skywalker. I would have liked to have seen that. Let's see, they're both heading for the spire that can be used to send out a message to the galaxy. And it's there that Kylo seems to believe he will find a weapon capable of ending the Resistance for good. This time, it's Poe and Chewbacca who track down Lando Calrissian, and it's revealed that the former captain of the Millennium Falcon once flew with Poe's mother, something we've seen in Marvel's tie-in comics. Well, that's interesting. We'd have heard a little bit about his mother. Lando refuses to help the Resistance in this draft, and Poe leaves by telling him that what his mom always said about him was right. This is garbage here. That's not really spelled right. It should be what his mom always said about him was right. Again, I really wouldn't have needed anybody to cast aspersions on Lando's heroism. I would have preferred that he kind of, wasn't that reluctant, but he only got a nudge to get in, being proactive. Again, not that he was completely bereft of any heroism. Clearly, that strikes a chord with Lando, because just as things are looking bleak for the Resistance during the final battle, he returns with thousands of ships in tow, much like the film, Rise of Skywalker. It's the big Kylo Ren versus Rey battle, but there's no vampire-like force powers this time. He is still blamed for murdering her parents, but it sounds like it was actually Snoke in this version. While this is happening, Solani finally gets her hands on the Sith holocron and unleashes the dark power within. So yeah, I imagine that was the Darth Sith villainous. Kylo saves her from being crushed by rubble, and she splits her double-sided lightsaber with him so they can fight this Knight of Ren. Wait a minute, did I skip something? I think I'm skipping. Let me look over this one more time. Again, this is kind of written by Garbage Tier, so I'm trying to see what it is. Yeah, okay. While this is happening, Solani finally gets her hands on the Sith holocron and unleashes the dark power within. Unlike Kylo Ren, it doesn't hurt her because she's fully embraced the dark. Should say dark side. Rey has a chance to kill Kylo, but chooses to forgive him and pleads with the Supreme Leader to bring Ben Solo back. Before he can reply, Solani grabs him, and she's now too powerful for them both. Kylo saves her from being crushed by rubble, and she splits her double-sided lightsaber with him so they can fight this Knight of Ren. Who's the Knight of Ren? I don't know. I think I skipped a line, but it doesn't really make much more sense either way. Kylo sacrifices himself by taking a blow that was meant for Rey, and she unleashes her own dark side in a bid to finish the powered-up Knight once and for all. Oh, I get it now. So I guess what they're trying to say is Rey gives Kylo one of her blades from her double-sided lightsaber so they can fight. Solio, whatever her name is here, Solani. Kylo ends up sacrificing himself by taking the blow that was meant for Rey, and she unleashes her dark side in a bit to finish the powered-up Knight once and for all. Again, kind of tough to figure this out here, but after sharing a look of love, Kylo dies in Rey's arms. The look of love is in your eyes. So they still were going to play that, I guess, even though I would prefer they just get the kiss and get it over with. Just do that. Before Kylo dies in Rey's arms, he reveals her name is Rey Solana. Not to be confused with Solani, which I guess was the bad guy's name. This is a real cluster of crap. Trying to figure this out. Alright. Despite being quote-unquote almost dead, Rey climbs the Jedi Spire and manages to send a message out to the galaxy. Revealing her full name, she tells them that hope is not lost. This sounds very much like Rogue One. I don't think I would have needed to see this Spire bull. That's kind of crap. Her last name being a nobody. I mean, again, I said from the very beginning, I would rather Rey have been a nobody than have her be Luke's daughter or Obi-Wan's granddaughter. I would prefer it if she was Han and Leia's daughter, but in lieu of that, having her be Palpatine's daughter was probably the way to go, I guess. I don't know. Let's finish this up here. We're going over an hour now at this point, but this was interesting. I hope you guys found it as interesting as I found it, but I don't know. It's at this point in the screenplay that Rey is healed by those Force ghosts we mentioned in our last breakdown. With the dark side defeated, the light again rises. So again, it was always going to be this death and resurrection thing for Rey, which, I don't know, doesn't feel very Star Wars-ish. You weren't allowed to Force heal in Star Wars. It's just not a concept that the Jedi really would behold to. I don't understand it. I don't know how to understand how the Jedi ghosts can heal as well. This, again, it seems like crap. I think we were better off with what we got, even though what we got was not great. Let's see here. The light rises again. That's so nice. During the closing few minutes, Chewbacca finally gets a medal. It seems like everybody had this mad fixation on getting Chewbacca a medal. It just felt weird in The Rise of Skywalker. I appreciate that it was done. You know, I appreciate why it was done, because the poor guy never got a medal in any of the movies. But it seems like a strange thing to be fixated on. I'm not sure, why, but it's weird. Everyone wonders whether Ray really has gone. Finn is reading a story to a group of young kids, and they ask him that very question. He says that he believes that she's alive because of the Force. A hint, perhaps, that he's also Force sensitive, which I guess apparently they could never come to terms on whether they wanted Finn to be Force sensitive or not. I was fine with him not being Force sensitive. I didn't feel the need to have Finn be Force sensitive, but I think it could have been a good thing had they established it early on, built on it in Episode 8, and then we see the full fruition of it in Episode 9. But, they didn't go that way. It was just like, the most subtle of hints, perhaps, in The Force Awakens, which I didn't even get anything from that. Supposedly, he may have felt the destruction of one of the Starkiller base destroyed the planets. He might have felt it. That was like the only hint we had. Nothing in The Last Jedi, and then we kind of get it sprung on us in Rise of Skywalker. Let's see. Lando has a moment with 3PO as R2 comes back online, and it's him who gets to see their memories, whereas it was Leia in the earlier version of the screenplay, because of course she's dead. I guess gets to see their memories. What does that mean? He just sits there watching a film of footage from all the movies all put together. That would have been nice in a way, because I always felt that the original plan for Lucas was to have 3PO and R2 be the Greek choruses of the Star Wars saga. They would have seen 3 generations of Skywalkers and how everything came to pass, and they were sort of like, non-committal on the events. They were just there to record them. That was kind of an early concept, and I would have liked to seen that be utilized in some form. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. Poe and Chewie find a beacon on a planet that may lead them to Rey, while we watch the Jedi pull the Millennium Falcon out of the ocean before turning around to teach kids in her own Jedi school. So, I don't understand that. Poe and Chewie find a beacon on a planet that may lead them to Rey. So I guess she went off and never returns to her friends? Kind of a weird choice to end the film on. And then Rey, I guess, apparently pulls the Millennium Falcon out of the ocean and then uses that to teach kids in her own Jedi school. In a sense, I think that would have been a good way to end it, because we see that the Jedi is still being built, unlike the way we ended it in the Rise of Skywalker, where it's just Rey is kind of left on her own, with no teacher and with no one to teach, as Harrison Ford would say, with no mama and no papa, no future, no past, very little past, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. This was the look at the Colin Trevorrow script for Episode 9, and the revised script, apparently, after the death of Carrie Fisher, and what they tried to do to salvage some of those ideas. Most of it has been scrapped for The Rise of Skywalker. I think maybe a few little incidental things may have found their way. But, again, I'm pretty much satisfied with Rise of Skywalker, given those 3 choices of those 3 scripts. I would have pulled a few things maybe out of the first draft, and maybe a few more from the second draft. I think maybe the character of Solony as the sort of female Darth Maul might have been an interesting choice to go with, as the Knights of Ren would have been given some kind of importance in this. Again, it seems like only one of them was given any kind of real importance, but then the others didn't have a leadership role. They kind of just had personalities without leadership, I guess. Okay, so that'll wrap it up for another stellar broadcast here on the Johnny Torch Live program. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us. And sticking with us. If you stuck with us this long, it was a pretty extra long show. Gonna try to do some more long shows. I want to do another live stream sometime this week. I want to see if I can do some more recorded videos. Hopefully we'll get a lot more content out there for you in the new year of 2020. Let me know what you think of the Colin Trevorrow Duel of the Fates script and the revised script. I read both of them there for you, and again, I'm satisfied with what we got in Rise of Skywalker, and I would have probably liked to see a few of those, other things implemented, like maybe another Force-sensitive villain. Might have been interesting, particularly with the rule of 2 and all that. It might have worked out. Alright, so until next we meet, thank you for joining us. Make sure you hit like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you back next week at our regularly scheduled time for the only way to spend your Saturday here with us on the Torch News Roundup and Johnny Torch Live. Until next we meet, once again, this is Johnny Torch reminding you, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.